Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Joined by our friend, retired U.S. Attorney Chuck Ambrose. Chuck, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you for the message reminding me of what happened over the weekend. I was kind of shell-shocked that Flynn is flipped and they're going to go to the White House and get the president. Oh, that was Brian Ross that was reporting that. Never mind.
Yeah.
As someone who has been at the highest levels of the Department of Justice, your reaction to this entire case, Mike Flynn pleading out?
Well, I've read the plea agreement. I've read the information, which is a document often used in lieu of an indictment when you get someone who's willing to plea in to waive indictment. And one thing is just very glaring here. In the charging document, the information, Mueller and his team start off by alleging that Flynn's lies materially obstructed and affected their investigation into Russian meddling in the election. But then you read the rest of the document, and there is absolutely nothing there about the election. The lies that Flynn appears to have told have to do with matters that occurred after the election in the transition team. I am really surprised that the judge supervising this plea even accepted it, because on the face of the document, there appears to be, in my opinion anyway, a defect in how these alleged lies would have been material. It is beyond me how something occurring after the fact could have been a material obstruction to, an investigation into things that happened months and even possibly a year earlier. The second thing that stands out is that in 30 years, in my experience of being a federal prosecutor, I never took a 1001 case in alone. Now, 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 is basically lying to the FBI or other federal investigators. I can remember a couple of occasions where an FBI agent came in and said, we ought to charge this guy with this. And I would ask them, what did he do besides lie to you? And if I couldn't prove the underlying substantive offense, there was just no way I was going to go into court with only, oh, my God, he lied to an investigator. Because, again, there is a materiality requirement. And Mr. Mueller seems to be following the path of his best friend forever, Mr. Comey, who used the same approach when he charged Martha Stewart. If your investigation is so weak that you cannot prove an underlying substantive offense, I think you ought to be embarrassed as a prosecutor to walk in with only a 1001 plea.
And yet, Chuck Ambrose, we have the drumbeats continuing on to go after the president. For those people that aren't familiar with what happened to Martha Stewart, could you enlighten us on that? Because I remember that case, and it was shocking that she went to prison for what she was convicted or pled out on.
Well, she was under investigation for insider stock trading, as I recall, for, taking some manipulative actions and then making money off them on the market. And Comey at that time, as I recall, was in the Southern District of New York, which is Manhattan, which has jurisdiction over the trading floor of the Wall Street stock market. So you would think with the access to all the documents that they normally have in a white-collar case, he could prove what he was going after. But yet there was no charge of insider trading. There was only Martha Stewart lied to me, and so she goes to jail for about a year. Now, with respect to Flynn's plea agreement and his jeopardy, the sentencing guidelines act as an overlay to any decision that the judge has to make. Now, it is true that the maximum he could go to jail for is 5 years, but under the terms of the plea agreement, he is looking at a guideline level sentence of 4, which also means that it is extremely likely, unless he draws a judge who just hates him, that he could walk away from this with no time whatsoever in probation. The other thing that I found kind of unusual is that the substantive offense for which he is probably good, and that is failing to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA, as an agent of the Turks when they were paying him, I believe it was $500,000 to lobby for them, is pushed aside. And, some have speculated maybe that was the reason he did this, because he didn't want his son to be indicted. I can't speak to that. What I can say is that there is nothing in this indictment, or information rather, that seems to indicate anything having to do with election collusion whatsoever. And that goes back to the original point that you and I discussed months ago about the mission creep and the unfettered potential abuse of power that a special counsel can become involved in.
Chuck Ambrose joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio, retired U.S. attorney. What do you make of your pal, former FBI Director James Comey, and his tweets lately? When this came out, what is this guy? Law enforcement officers, I was always taught, Chuck, are above reproach, are above politics, and don't admit to leaking, and B, are not in the social media pettiness that is former Director Comey.
Mr. Comey has always viewed himself to be a superior being. He did that in instance after instance when he was with DOJ, when he was at FBI. He tries to offset that with this down-to-earth, humble persona, but my experience with the man and his other statements to other attorneys, like, no attorney worth his salt would ever disagree with me on this posture. And if you look back at what he did during the election himself, it was akin to trying to decide the election for the American people. He wasn't going to do it on any legal basis, even though that's his job and that's where his lane ended. But he couldn't stay there. He has to just pontificate and dismiss both candidates single-handedly. I don't know, where he thought he was going with that, by dirtying up Mrs. Clinton and not following through on it, and then at the same time being dismissive of Trump. I guess he thought he would persuade the country to go renominate candidates on each side. But, that's where the man's ego is. It has no boundaries whatsoever, and it is not in his character to simply do his job. Never has been.
What about this FBI agent that was dismissed from the team for being, anti-Trump, for lack of a better thing? Again, isn't this a poor reflection on Mueller, that he should be vetting his people more appropriately?
It is, and it's a poor reflection on, again, the remaining hierarchy of the FBI, that this guy would even have a badge at this point. You've still got McDade, the Clinton ally in Politico, in serving as deputy director. And apparently, as in the Justice Department, there were hirings and appointments based almost solely on politics, at least in terms of placement within the Bureau. Those who were anti-Trump or pro-Clinton were elevated. Those who were more independent were given gag orders. It's a very sad state of affairs.
Well, let's continue on with the FBI and the president saying, look, Hillary Clinton lied to the FBI. Nothing was done to her. And yet Flynn gets his life ruined, and now people going after the president for a tweet.
Well, in all fairness, I wish he would stop tweeting at this point. I'm not sure there is a whole lot of constructive development to be returned from that. But by the same token, the bias in the media continues. The bias in law enforcement continues. It's one reason I retired a year early. I just couldn't stand to see the system being abused the way it was.
Chuck Ambrose joining us, Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. So where do we go from here objectively in this investigation?
I don't think we go anywhere, and that's objective or otherwise. Now, it's always possible that the system can be further abused, but there again is nothing in the Flynn information, nothing in the Manafort information that I have seen that ever points toward criminal conduct on the part of the campaign that ever points to collusion on the part of the campaign. That mythology continues in the so-called mainstream media. I'm not sure they are mainstream anymore. But I still have not seen a shred of evidence to support those claims. And I am independent enough, even though I tell people, Trump wasn't my first choice, but he was my final choice because I prefer occasional crudeness over chronic criminality. And if there was something there, I would say, yep, he's in trouble. He shouldn't have done it, and let the chips fall where they may. But I have seen nothing to justify any of this speculation, and that's all that remains at this point.
And yet that doesn't stop the press from continuing to fuel this fire. What do you make of the Whisper campaign in Washington, where people are trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, making these allegations without any evidence that the president is not all there?
He is simply not one of them, and that is not something they can afford to stand. And, the fact that he is not willing to deal with their usual mechanisms and calls them out on it is something that's dangerous to their system. You're talking about a system in which senators, for example, statutorily make only about $175,000 a year. But then their staff fund, and we're seeing, allegations about abuse of these things coming out in these settlements for sexual harassment. Their staff funds run from $2.5 to $3 million a year. And that's a slush fund they can tap in a number of ways. It's supposed to be just for office expenses and travel and to pay their staff. But then you look at the fact that most of these people come to Washington already well off to some extent, but by the time they leave, they are all multi-millionaires. And it is a swamp. It needs to be absolutely cleaned. If I were dictator for a month, I think I'd move the capital to Omaha just to see how many of the lobbyists would be willing to follow people out there. It's a disturbing system, and the Club of 100, as the Senate has been called, is probably the worst in that regard.
Chuck, tell us a little bit about your career as a best-selling author.
Well, that career has taken a very nice turn this past month. We made Amazon bestseller badge, even though I am independently published, which means I do it myself rather than having to pay agents. The last book, called Death Votes Last, actually has to do with corruption in the Senate and what if, instead of just trying to dirty an opponent up with allegations of misconduct, they drugged one of their opponents and he had a fatal car accident, and then could a trial of that nature ever get a fair verdict in the Democratic enclave that is Washington, D.C.? But the first book, and actually the whole series, sold very well this past month, enough to earn that bestseller badge. We had over 1,000 sales. And we have another free book giveaway on the first book, which is occurring on December 16th of this year on Amazon. People can download that for free and see if they'd be interested in the rest of the series. I write under the pen name Mark Rainer, which is a tribute to a couple of family members. It's MarkRainer, and the books are all available on Amazon.
Well, Chuck, we always appreciate you making yourself available, and glad to have you in Idaho.
Glad to be here. It's a wonderful place.
Sorry about the sanctions on Ole Miss.
I'm not. I was forced to go there for law school, but I'm a Southern Miss guy, and I'm never really upset about sanctions on Ole Miss or Mississippi State because they blackballed Southern Miss out of the SEC for about 50 years. So, in-state rivalries die hard. Never
should have gotten rid of Jeff Bowden, right?
Oh, amen to that.
Yeah. Chuck, take care, sir.
You too. Thanks, Kevin.
All right, our great friend Chuck Ambrose. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
I will say this. Hillary Clinton lied many times to the FBI. Nothing happened to her. Flynn lied, and they destroyed his life. I think it's a shame. Hillary Clinton, on the 4th of July weekend, went to the FBI, not under oath. It was the most incredible thing anyone's ever seen. She lied many times. Nothing happened to her. Flynn lied, and it's like they ruined his life. It's very unfair.
And good morning, Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. The president today talking about Mike Flynn and doing so on his way to Utah.
I feel badly for General Flynn. I feel very badly. He's led a very strong life, and I feel very badly.
I do want to thank Chuck Ambrose and his expertise for joining us and talking about this lying to the FBI. Well, everybody lies to the FBI, I guess. It's how they got Martha Stewart, and this is a big deal. And Brian Ross, the big investigative reporter from ABC that misinformed the public, now he's, been suspended for 4 weeks, not 4 days, 4 weeks for what he did. Basically, he said that Flynn had agreed to go after Trump, and it was Trump this and Trump that. Totally fabricated, and yet there isn't a lot of outrage outside of ABC News. Here's Kellyanne Conway.
So many in the media have relied upon that report, that false report, blatantly false report by ABC News' Brian Ross. And actually, that report still existed when you had the media press party here, ironically, on Friday. If he worked for me, I wouldn't say 4 weeks suspension without pay is enough, because this is the heart of the entire year. Every network, the cable stations, the mainstream media has obsessed. The Democrats on Capitol Hill, they've done nothing this year. The only accomplishment the Democrats have this year is holding up and saying stop, resist, obstruct, no, and Russia, Russia, Russia. So it's not enough.
Kellyanne Conway on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Eric in CUNA with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, morning, Kevin. Hey, it's really just ridiculous, and I mean, it's just ridiculous what they do. I mean, okay, they're blaming Donald Trump for colluding with Russia. Okay, if people do their research, I think it was Mueller was part of that deal, that uranium deal to begin with. Okay, now who's colluding with Russia? The ones who are blaming Trump. Now, what are they blaming Trump for now? Crazy? Crazy? Yeah, let's talk about crazy. Let's talk about the last 8 years of crazy. Let's talk about, one thing right off the top of my head, allowing men to go in women's restrooms. Crazy. I mean, we could write out a list of 1,000 things of crazy. Now they're blaming, they blame for exactly what they're guilty of. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I mean, I feel really bad for Trump. I mean, he really puts up with a lot. And, he could be sitting on a beach somewhere drinking pina coladas with his wife. I mean, but here he is, doing a service for our country. And what are these clowns doing? I mean, the media, I don't even watch mainstream news. I mean, I catch it a little bit. What I catch pretty much is on your radio station, but and on news feeds and stuff. But
sure,
I don't really watch mainstream news. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Eric, thank you for the call.
Hey, thank you for everything you do. Your show is it gets better every day. Great. God bless, buddy.
God bless. Take care. And it's 8:28, time for traffic and weather together. And let's go to Liberty Linda on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. I was thinking about how it's truly been a roller coaster ride ever since President Trump was elected. Has there been one day that something hasn't been happening? I mean, it's absolutely amazing. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Not one day, I don't think. There's always something different has been going on to try to get him out of office. And it's just absolutely unbelievable to me. I never have witnessed this with any of our presidents.
Well, the crazy part about this, the crazy part about this is that these Republicans gave Obama the big pass.
I know, amazingly enough. We look at the two stories of the two presidents, and us, are sitting back here, wondering what in the world is going on. We know truth. We know justice. We know what's going on in our country. We see those things clearly, at least your callers do, your listeners do. And And, still, here it is a year later, and it's going on continually every day. You can't hardly keep up with one story that you're reporting on when we get 2 or 3 more the next day. It's like, anyway, I was just thinking how amazing what's going on. And then now to turn to, the Bundy story, that coming back into focus. I was remembering when you actually went to Nevada and you interviewed Father Bundy. And, Kevin, I really thought he sounded over the phone like a very kind, nice person, very religious, very common sense. Thank you so much for going down there and interviewing him and telling us the true story. And then you went up north. You actually fell down and slipped and hurt yourself. But you'll go to no ends to give us the true story. And I just want to call in and thank you for that, Kevin. You're such a blessing to us here. And anyway, these are amazing things going on. Thank you for bringing us the true story.
Well, thank you for listening to the true stories, Liberty Linda.
Well, that's what we need to know. We need to know the truth so we can work it out in our own minds and know truly what's going on in this wonderful country of ours.
I'm with you. Thank you for the call. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get back to the calls. We go to Max in Garden City. Good morning, Max.
Good morning and Merry Christmas season to you, buddy.
And to you.
I want to join that lady in thanking you for keeping things real. You're just about the only talk show I would even call into. You keep it real, and that's not an easy thing to do. You can be like the mainstream media, grab something sensational, feed on a lie, and probably get more listenership in the short run. But in the long run, Idahoans listen to you because you keep it real. Okay?
Well, thank you.
And I just wanted to ask a question to the public in general. How amnesiac can you be? Think a minute. We have no memory. We watched a year of campaign coverage on the main media. Every single poll they came out with proves to be either horribly in error or a cooked-up lie. In any case, they were wrong. In a whole year, they failed to lie enough to shoot down President Trump. So that was shame on you, okay? Now we're listening to the same networks, the same polls, and we're believing them again. You fool me once, shame on you. You'll fool me twice, shame on me, shame on us.
What do you make of this yearning to get rid of Trump with these allegations that he's mentally unstable?
You've got to remember, they've played every card they can think of. He's a communist spy. He's a terrorist in disguise. He eats too much food. He's, come on. It just took this time to come to the surface, and they'll think of another lie. They'll probably say he's a devil worshiper or that he founded Skull and Bones. Not yet, but trust me, the media doesn't care what they say. They'll just blurt it out, and somewhere some idiots will believe. Oh, example, I heard a fellow the other day said James Comey is a paragon of virtue and professionalism, and I about fell down laughing.
Well, that's the refreshing thing about our little morning soiree is that we get the other side out, because you're not getting any news, any truth with the rest of the media.
Open up your internet, look at your browser. Unfortunately, mine falls onto Yahoo. And I'm looking at 15 articles, only 2 of which could even be construed as news. The rest are hit pieces and opinion pieces disguised as news articles. I don't want to be indoctrinated. I want to be informed. You inform me. You don't indoctrinate me. I'll be listening to you for a long, long time, buddy. I'll even listen to I forget his name. You got this morning Democrat calls in all the time. I'll even listen to him.
Oh, Liberal Jimmy.
Yeah, him. Yeah, Liberal Steve. Oh, baby. But that's another matter. I love your show. Liberal Steve, keep it up, buddy. We need you out there so we can remember what happens if we drop our guard.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Jim in Boise on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Morning, Kevin. Yeah, in response to kind of what Liberty Lender was talking about and Trump, we must remember it's very simple. Trump is first and foremost an entertainer. Okay, maybe not first and foremost. He's a businessman, but he is an entertainer, and he is entertaining. And I think it's crazy, and it's also cool, I guess, the Twitter stuff. Now, I know nothing about Twitter. I'm not about the Twitter. As far as I know, the only things that Twitter are birds. But, I mean, Trump keeps them hopping, and he's entertaining, bottom line.
All right, Jim.
All previous presidents were rather boring, wouldn't you think?
I would say yes. People would say, though, that they had a code that they were adhering to.
Trump is eccentric, and I consider myself eccentric, outside the bounds of normal society. When you think about societal rules, it's weird. It's kind of like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. If all the crazy people got together and decided you were the one that was crazy, that'd be the way it'd be. Well, anyway, take care, Kevin.
Jim, thank you for the call, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to our friend Cindy in Caldwell, who joined me Friday night at Idaho Chooses Life. Good morning, Cindy.
Yeah, Kevin, that was a great event, Iron Sharpens Iron, and it was just a pleasure to be sitting with a room of, people who you probably thought had some like-mindedness about, life. And, Donald Trump has been more, as the speaker said on Friday night, more active in promoting the life of the baby in utero, and tried to put everything out that he can to promote, I would say, Judeo-Christian values, even in his White House this year with having his Christmas card to say Merry Christmas. And I'm just so blessed by that. And I actually am, this morning I liked what Eric had to say. Eric reminds me of the people that probably did vote for Donald Trump who got his message of, family and property rights and independence and freedom and the Constitution, and entrenched ideologues, whether it be, Mueller, Comey, Hillary Clinton, or the press. I will have to say, I don't even go there with them. I mean, unless they have, I used to call it the aha moment in teaching and the light bulb experience in their hearts, even at this Christmas time, they're going to just keep their heels dug in. I do take great offense with the looseness that even people will use the word crazy. I hated that as a mental health psychiatric nurse when people would allude to other people as crazy. I just find it despicable that you would use that term. And yet, it seems that the wolf is at the door. The wolf will be at the door until the good Lord, he came once and he's coming back. But I would like to just say I am grateful, and I thank them, the Idaho Press Tribune, for printing a picture of Melania looking gorgeous with ballet dancers in the White House. And that, if that isn't a picture of race relations, her sitting there with all these little children around her, hugging her. They weren't born as God had it foreordained, Caucasian. They were born a different color. And that was the most beautiful picture, as well as the picture they have of Ammon Bundy. It just brought tears to my eyes on Saturday when I opened that paper and saw that man with his family. It just reminded me of the ending, It's a Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart. And there he was, and that boy, his young boy, has got the most radiant smile on his face to have his daddy back home. So, I'm believing for the other ones, Cliven and all of them. I hope they're standing strong for the right. I was on mental health. I also worked in the Department of Corrections in a maximum state prison, and I know there's people in there that, are getting a good word to those men who are, being on the side of right. So a picture can say 1,000 words, and that Saturday picture just says it all to me about Christmas, the Bundy family, and those passionate women that you do let speak on the radio that are just staying the course with the Bundys, and also providing prayers of comfort for the Finnegan family. So thanks, Kevin, for being on the side of life, especially this Christmas time.
Thank you, Cindy. Take care.
Yes, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Hank in Boise. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. Well, over the years we've talked about the various corruptions of the Clinton family, but I think their biggest corruption of all is the corruption of our law enforcement. I mean, Jim Comey and Mueller both came up, got where they got within the Justice Department and FBI, originally from the Trump era, and you're talking about the Martha Stewart case. This is again a case they're in the second term of Clinton that rose with these people. I mean, the injustices, the two-tier system where you have one set of justice for your side of the political fence in the Clinton system, and another set of justice for your opponents. And and it kind of vindicates the people who argued against the creation of the FBI back in 1908, that this was a department that could be potentially dangerous and it could be politicized. And the Clintons have shown that the people who opposed it back in the days of Teddy Roosevelt in 1908, the creation of the FBI, were probably right. We were lucky in a sense that J. Edgar Hoover professionalized the court. Whatever you say about J. Edgar Hoover, at least there was he kept the partisan politics at least at the lower level, whatever he did. And ever since he's been gone, there's been a gradual erosion of this department, and of course the Clintons have completely corrupted it, and that's their biggest, sorriest legacy, and it has consequences in terms of a republic, because a republic can't function unless there's equal protection of law. But once the laws become perverted or the laws are down, your republic is essentially gone, and that's the biggest legacy of Hillary. That's it. And what a dangerous woman she would be if she was president, given her lust for power, which is becoming more and more evident, and the corruption. I don't think the country as we know it would survive her if she was lucky. I mean, she became president. We were lucky that Trump was elected. I'm frightened for the consequences if we don't get this cleaned up.
Hank, thank you for the call.
Well, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And welcome to Monday. Thank you all for joining us. Back to your calls. Tea Party Bob, the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, joins us now. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Miller. It was good to see you on Friday at the Idaho Chooses Life dinner. Quite a crowd there.
Yeah, I noticed you bailed out rather quickly.
Well, believe it or not, I finally got to meet that young lady I've been trying to meet from the Stanton Clinic. And
Brandy.
Yeah, so we had a long conversation, and then I did bail out.
So were there any sparks?
Well, only in terms of maybe getting something going with the clinic. So maybe there's some mutual agreement on how we can work together.
Fair enough. Yeah, it was a great event Friday night.
So as another week goes by, Trump is still in office. The market continues to rise. Liberal media and the Democrats continue to be pummeled by accusations of offenses against women and lies about President Trump. So I guess this is the new norm for America, and the order of the day is, if you don't have any good news, just say something bad about the president.
Well, the fact they're making up that he's crazy.
Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, if anybody's going to turn this country around, you've got to be crazy, because it's almost an impossibility. You know, the problem with liberals having and trying to deal with Trump and take him down is there's nothing to base their accusations on, and when it comes right down to it, the only thing he's done wrong is to drain the swamp and improve the economy. It appears that the libs are on their own. They are their own worst enemies. Every time they try to attack him, it seems that more of them come under scrutiny. And Mueller, he needs to be fired, and Clinton and Comey need to be charged with obstruction of justice. But we know that'll never happen. So the best the libs can do is to continue to allow Trump to move the economy forward, get the country back on track after 8 years of an abomination of America. And the voters of this country are behind Trump. And I understand what he is doing, and I think they do too. I will predict that if he runs in 2020, he's going to win again.
Well, you heard it here first. Thank you, Tea Party Bob. And Thank you for doing your best to get Representative Moon booked for tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, she should be on tomorrow. You should have an opportunity to talk to her.
So you told her and said, hey.
I said, hey, Mr. Miller's looking for you.
Well, it'll be. She's been there every day, so we'll see what happens.
She's a good lady. You'll enjoy talking to her.
That's an endorsement from you.
Yes, indeed it is.
All right, Tea Party Bob, thank you.
Have a great day, Kevin.
You too. Bye-bye. 8:53, time for traffic and weather. And we go to Liberal Steve, who joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love brought to me headlines from New York that said Trump is trying to flee. Yeah. He'll be running in 2020. He'll be running through the hills of Paraguay trying to find a place to hide. He's crazy like a fox. Yeah. Are you any better off now, Kevin, a year from last year at this time?
Yes, I am.
Are you? I wonder how many of your listeners, and 99% of your listeners are just people that agree with you. That's silly. I mean, if everybody's thinking the same, nobody's thinking. Of course, that's Idaho. And I love it. It's so easy to become powerful. You stay fired up, Miller, and yes.
That was a pretty weak take today.
Oh, yeah? I'll weak take you.
That was pretty
on
weak.
Friday night in the ring, buddy. You stay fired up, and I predict.
Where did that one come from?
Would you quit critiquing everything and just listen? I mean, you listen to Cindy nonstop.
I guess you're a tough guy. Well, Cindy doesn't say she's going to take me into the ring.
And Cindy hates that word crazy. Cindy, you're crazy! You stay fired up, Miller. Have a great, great evening. Bye. Oh, and TP, just stay in the house. Every time you come out, it just causes confusion and upheaval. Oh, glad I got that out.
There we have it. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Pat in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. I called with a question. We just elected this president, and the plaintiff in Mueller's case is the people of the United States. And with the book that Donna Brazile just came out with, it clearly shows Clinton was manipulating the election. How does this work? Who gives the authority to sue or to proceed with this case? Not the people.
Well, what do you think?
I think that Mueller should have, if he wants to do this suit, somebody else needs to pay for it, not us. He has no foundation. Period.
Well,
we need to move on. We have things. We have Korea looming on the horizon, serious issues. And we don't need them looking at our country and thinking it's weak, or our allies concerned about whether Trump's going to be there or not.
Well, no, that's a very valid point. I mean, what type of message are we sending to the rest of the world when we have people on the big shows saying, that Trump's crazy?
Well, we know he's not. He shouldn't have gotten elected. He was wise enough to get elected. And the people elected him because they're tired of what existed. Now the regime that existed is trying to undo what we selected by saying that we, the people, want him gone. And that's not true. They have no foundation. Flynn is not necessarily a bad man. He got caught up in a bad situation. We have big issues. They need to stop. Donna Brazile came out and said Hillary manipulated the election. That's where they need to go. And I really resent them using our money to do a witch hunt like this. I really do. We just elected him. There's no way we're approving this. Who authorizes, who decides what they get to do with our money like this? There's a book there in black and white from Donna Brazile, what Hillary did.
I agree, but then she backs off of it as well.
Well,
you heard her
late.
I know you heard her on with Sean. I agree with you. I mean, she said it was rigged and everything else.
Well, the people voted for Trump. The people are not trying to get him out. And I see no manipulation. I see a big witch hunt. They keep hiring more and more attorneys. It's a rabbit hole. And I don't know where our money's going. It doesn't need to go there. We have some serious issues. We need to beat the United States. I can tell you, in the last presidential regime, I felt like the government was feeding on the people.
Lori, great call. Or Pat, great call. Good morning.